Hi, Boise Entrepreneur Week, and welcome back. My name is Nick Crabbs. I'm the partner and chief community officer at Vynyl, and really excited to sit down with Roger Brown, the economic development director at Boise State, and Eric Gilbert, the CEO of Treefort. Today is kind of the last talk for the BEW Live portion. I thought it'd be really fun to just have kind of an open conversation about ecosystem development, which in a lot of ways is what Boise Entrepreneur Week is trying to accomplish, and really the partnerships and strategy that goes into creating the gravity that makes the right conditions for entrepreneurs, creatives, and really sometimes just young people to stay in our ecosystem. So I'm excited to have that conversation with you and really just maybe have some meditations on it really, and what makes Boise a great place. So really quickly, maybe you guys could just talk about what you're working on, that kind of to that effect, and then we can jump in and have those meditations.
Great. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Director of Economic Development at Boise State. I work out of the Division of Research. The big thing we're working on right now is trying to rethink how we lean outward. That's the simplest way to put it, but we have a community we serve internal to the university. We have a mission to serve the community outside of the university, and in a time where we're resource constrained, taking a hard look at what we have in terms of assets and trying to figure out how we can do it better. It will culminate in the announcement in October of what we're calling the Junction, which is about bringing people who lean outward together, campus units and off-campus partners, and trying to divine programming, support, and energy around those activities, not to displace or duplicate efforts, but to try to swell them, add more value, identify gaps, and create more opportunities, both for our community partners and for our students, faculty, and staff.
Yeah, nice.
Starting Treefort in and of itself was kind of like trying to affect the ecosystem, right? But I was going to just maybe speak to something we identified early on was the lack of access for all ages crowds, really, like for youth to have access to culture, but really to have access in a more direct and an active way, right? Like you can go to these big shows, right, as a kid, but that's a very passive experience. And so for us, we're really excited about the venues we built out, like Shrine Social Club and Treefort Music Hall, where either Boise State students or even younger have the opportunity to learn how to do sound, or learn how to run a show, or learn how to play on a stage. So I think when you think of ecosystems, infrastructure like that matters, right? Like what space, what people have access to. For a long time in Boise, the smaller capacity venues, aka the venues where artists could suck, were 21 plus. And so if you can't have the opportunity to even try until you're 21 or older, that's a big gap, right? And so as a starting foray, that's kind of that's one thing that we've focused on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and many watching might have the question, because it sounds like the beginning of a bad joke of like, what does a software technologist, a university, and like a music festival have in common when it comes to ecosystem development? But I think that, the three of us certainly have had this conversation in various different ways all the time about, in order to create gravity to build the conditions, you also have to be providing the on-ramps, either for young people to work sound at a show, or to have places for them to go to get the support for entrepreneurship. Certainly when we were talking earlier this year about how to potentially provide funding mechanisms in our ecosystem, that came up a lot. I talk about Treefort all the time because Treefort's one of my reasons on why I've stayed, right? And so, when you think about all of the pieces that go together, one of them is access to art and culture, and certainly for creatives, and I like to think of myself as a thinking person, so like that's important. And the Bay Area, Seattle, Los Angeles, like they have good university systems there. They have lots of opportunity for creative, and Boise has some, but they have one really strong one, right? One really strong partner. So maybe Roger, just kind of in your role, like how do you, and as you lean outwards as an initiative, how do you think about those collaborations with maybe organizations who, on paper, don't necessarily seem like a collaboration, but it's all part of that gravity building, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't want to steal Eric's thunder, but I've learned a lot from watching the way Treefort has grown, and that there's a really long tail on that comet, and it affects a lot of aspects of life in the valley that people don't necessarily think about. One, as an old guy who likes punk music, to be able to take my kid to see a punk show, like a legitimate punk show in town, and he has a different attitude about his hometown than he would have a short time ago. And I have a different attitude about it. Certainly for the students we serve and the people we recruit to come work here, like any large employer, employers look for water, they look for transportation, they look for a pool of qualified people they can hire, and they look for those things that affect their quality of life at home. Schools, culture, the cabin, these things matter when people are looking at investing in the valley. And so whether we approach it as a large employer or whether we approach it as someone who, an entity that's always trying to add value to the lives of the students who come here and the faculty who come here and the staff who come here, I don't see it as any different. Whether it's the entrepreneurial community you try to stimulate and add value in, whether it's the cultural economy, to me it's about being the most well-rounded, unique. You know, we have, Treefort is a very unique asset. The foothills are right there, like the quality of life we have in Boise. It's all one big friendly bundle that I think makes us, gives us an opportunity to do something really special. I love, we want the university to play at the heart of that and to support partners in the community and stimulate it the right way. But I just think it's a super exciting time to be in Boise, and that we're hitting on all cylinders largely because we've got local people who have invested in unique local things.
Well, and for a long time, I think when, you flash back 10 years ago and you ask someone like, why Boise, right? People would say things like, well, it's safe, there's low crime, there's no traffic, the housing is really cheap. Like that was a big part of the why of Boise. Well, like those things aren't true anymore, right? They're not as true as they were. Certainly housing is in a very different situation. I actually got stuck in rush hour traffic once. Oh my God, it was terrible. I didn't know that could happen here. So like some of these things just aren't true anymore. So now what is our new why, right? Now we have to start thinking about what that is. Well, if I was making a case and I was writing the handbook on what our why is gonna be, right, we're gonna start talking about knowledge-based economy. We're gonna start talking about the opportunity for being creative. We're gonna start talking about access to, I would say there's a lot of open doors here. I can email a CEO and probably get a meeting within a week, which I would never get that in Seattle, right? So there's a lot of access here. And, as a corporate partner, you start paying attention to talent pipeline, resource pipeline. You start paying attention to the cultural pipeline because it matters to our future prospectus on how we can grow our business here, for sure. So maybe kind of a similar but flipped question to Eric, how does Treefort look at kind of that gravity building holistically outside of just Treefort? And since we have a great, economic development guy from Boise State, maybe you can talk about Boise State a little bit.
Yeah, there's a couple things. Yeah, the collaborative nature of our work, and I think how when the economy is working well, it just naturally has that, right? And so I think like if I just once again look at the creative sector and how it can partner well with the rest, if I just think of even look at the camera crew here, which I know several of them as musicians and not just musicians, but what I've loved about with Treefort is like there's all these pieces of that it takes to put it on that translates throughout the year. Like if I just think of myself, just since I am a musician, if I have to put out a record, I need graphic design, I want to do some videos, I need someone to write a bio, I need all these other pieces of that. And that's like running a business anymore, right? You need all this content anyway. So
Bands are a business.
Yeah. Well, and I think like the more of those that are in town, businesses need to hire those, and so I think it's really, that's where also the cultural economy intersects with other sectors well, right? And then there's the intangible of just like wanting to live in a town that you want to live in. Now, the other side is like, and I think related to our relationship with Boise State or others is I love the more like we have gotten to know the ecosystem on campus and realize that they're, the classic role for a university in a city is a research partner, right? They're like the R&D lab. And so that's one thing, us with kind of leading like music policy thought is like making sure Boise State is at the table too, so we can build a regenerative access to research and data around the work that we're all doing, right? And so I'm really excited about that is developed. And in part from Roger and Amanda Ashley, who were just on, and others over there that recognize that this is a sector in and of itself. And it's been fun to watch the public sector in general slowly start to understand that the creative economy is a real economy, but also is a generator of the culture that matters for like other reasons. Right? So
I think I talk about it in a similar way, because I use the word like having enough gravity to make sure that you're pulling in all the resources you need, right? And so I actually use Treefort as a really great example of, if you just think about this as just like mass, right? Treefort's a pretty big one that you can bolt on, and that actually helps in the thing maybe you actually want if you're an economic development guy or the city or a corporation or whoever it is that wants to see these resources develop in the local economy. Like if you discount all the pieces that create that gravity, or I shouldn't say all the pieces, but some of those pieces because they're not immediately relevant to you, it becomes harder to pull that in. So you said something that was kind of interesting to me, and in the last couple of minutes we have, maybe you can riff on it. You said that in a functioning economy, it kind of happens naturally, and so there's this little bit of like tug between laissez-faire, allowing it to do what it's going to do, versus intentionality and trying to get partners on the same page, pulling in the same direction. For anyone who knows me can probably guess which one I am, right? So I guess maybe like riff on that one more time. Like, what do you think about kind of just it happens versus like we need to work together to make it happen?
Yeah,
right?
well, I think like, and that's kind of where I think opening up networks, and if you even use this event, like you said, like you need those like channels of communication and activity, like interchanging ideas or products or services. That's what I was saying. Is like, like when the economy is working well, it's working together, I guess, right? That's kind of what I was getting at. I'm curious your take on that.
Yeah, I think youth is energy, and I hope that's not just that I'm slowing down, but the creativity and energy tends to come from youth, and there are productive collisions all the time when you're young, and there's a lot of need for focus in that energy. Someone is going to affect the environment you live in.
Right.
When we say laissez-faire, I think we often think of the government. Somebody's going to do it, and it's often the people with the energy and adding the know-how. That an artist is an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur can be artful. I think those are really critical things.
Yeah.
Well, I think talking about youthful energy too, I mean, I was 27 when I originally co-chaired this event, right? How old were you when you started Treefort?
32.
Yeah, pretty young, like
Yeah,
in
yeah,
comparison, right?
Yeah.
And so there's something to it, right? When you build that gravity and you're keeping young people here, I mean, Idaho has for a long time kind of had to battle the kind of exiting of our knowledge, right? This knowledge loss that happens with young people are like, okay, now I got my degree at Boise State, maybe now it's time for me to bounce to Seattle and go build my life, right? I actually think that's happening less now than it used to, right? If you go back 10 years, I think now they're more concerned, can I buy a home? But like that's in some ways a better problem to have than is there opportunity for me, right? Which I think has
That's why the ecosystem matters.
right. Like I think that has kind of shifted a little bit. Well, listen, guys, we could talk on this forever. We have, and we probably will outside of this forum. And so I really want to thank you for taking just a couple minutes to riff on these ideas. I think they're important ideas to talk about. I think when there are people above us who make decisions sometimes, and I think this is the stuff that we got to remind them about because we talk about it a lot. So thank you for watching. Don't miss all the great events this week. BW Live Day 2 will start tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Also, since our Broncos are going to Notre Dame, go Broncos.